Hi, from Teacher Melissa. Today I want to give you another tip video in my series about the new VIPKid Level 5. I love the way the level is set up. It's so different from every other level now that they've revamped it. And some teachers really don't like it, but I do. It really gives me a chance to work on my students' conversation skills. It uses a lot of things that are pretty standard in the educational industry. Some of them are kind of kicking it old school, like that KWL chart. I talk about that in another video if you want to go check that out. But questioning is very important for some of our upper level, for all of our upper level students. So, but I found this ending slide to be quite awkward, so I had to sit down and kind of formulate some strategies to be ready for it when it pops up. So, you get to the end of the unit and it says, "Do you have any questions?" And my students always say, "No," or they just want to talk. Now, either one of those are fine, but I wanted to make it academically viable and helpful to my student and to help them to self-analyze. And that was a key strategy that I wanted to give to my students to help them to self-analyze. So I'm going to show you a couple samples of what I've done with a few students, and you can try them out and see if it works for you. So you see on this first one, I've got a check mark and a circle. So I'm talking to the student as I do that. The first thing I ask them is to put a check mark by what they think they did well in that lesson. So I'm going to say, "Oh, Coco, you did a great job today. Now, this is everything we did. What do you think you did a really good job on?" Now, here's the key. At this point, I'm going to say, pick one thing. Pick one thing you think you did really great on. Now, and in this particular one, they thought they did great on these particular nouns. So they chose those. Okay. And then I say, okay, now circle. What would you like to practice more? Where do you need to practice? So I'm asking the student to analyze their own performance in that day's class, and that can be very important for our level 5 students. So this particular student on this one picked that the reading, the inventions part, that was our big long reading section. And in the inventions, there were a lot of American names, Alexander Graham Bell, things like that. So she wanted to practice the inventions. And no matter what they say that they need to practice, I always say, "Yes, I think you did good on that, but yes, a little more practice would help you improve your English." So I'm going to agree with their analysis. I'm not going to say, "Oh, no, you did that great." Obviously, I'm not going to say that. They've taken a moment to analyze. So here's another one that we did. The student thought they did real great on this geometry portion, so they put a big check there. They were really great with the math part, but they thought they needed to work on the reflexive pronouns, and who doesn't, right? So that's what they circled. Okay, so I'm just going to let them self-analyze just a little bit there. Now, if I think they need to practice more on one more thing, or I might circle something, "Great, I also want you to practice this." Or if I think they did exceptionally well, or I think they just need a little more encouragement, maybe they're feeling a little shaky about that day's class or about that lesson that they are in right now, I might put check marks on some other things. I might say, "Oh, you did so good on this also. Great job," just to kind of build up their confidence level. Now, another thing that I've done is at the end, I've put a box around the vocabulary words or whatever section you want to do, and I will underline one word that I want them to work on. So that's the red, that's my color pen, and I'll say, "This is something I want you to work on, to practice." And then I'll say, "Now you pick one. What's one that you think you want to practice?" So it's just I want you to practice one. What do you want? So we're both looking for something. And the student has underlined the blue word here. So that just gives us both a chance to say, "You need to work on these." Now, in all likelihood, the student needs to work on a lot of this vocabulary, but I am not going to overwhelm them. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to have them pick one. Which one do you have questions about? For me, questions mean there's questions in your mind, not necessarily questions we're going to ask right now. It could be that. But what are some questions in your mind? You need to go back and look at this material. You need to practice this. And so we're each choosing one. Now, I also look at this end slide as what questions I have. So I might just pop to this end and I will say, I want to make sure that you are reviewing these things, and I might review them right there. Now, this is if I've got to the end and I've got an extra minute maybe or two, and I want to use up that time. So I'm actually going to be asking them questions because it says question time. Okay, it's time for me to ask you some questions. So I might use this for a review. I might say, okay, let's question. Let's do some questions at the end for practice. And I might circle a vocab word and say, make a sentence with this, or what does this mean? Or if I've got an advanced student and that's why we're done a minute or two early, I might ask them, is there a multiple meaning here? So it is me asking them review questions. It might be simply cover your eyes, let's spell some words. If it's a shape, it's the geometry one. I might start holding up some of my 3D shapes and asking them, what's this shape? What's this shape? Whatever. I might ask them about people who invented things, or show me something in your room. I might circle that word and say, can you have one? So I might use this as a time that I am questioning them at the end to review parts of the lesson. Okay? Now, sometimes I have no time for that at all. So I'm flipping to this end slide and I'll say, wow, you did a great job. Yes, your vocab was so good. And I'm putting a big X through the whole vocab box. I'm not doing every little check box. It takes too long. Big check. You did great on this, and your reading was so good in this. And don't forget to practice this. And I'm not asking them to analyze. I don't have time for them to think. I've got to get done with this lesson and get on to my next one. So I'm just saying, great, great. Practice this, okay? Don't forget. Great, goodbye. See you later. And I'm just moving on, okay? So there's lots of things you can do here depending on the student, what kind of scaffolding you have to do. If you've got a great student, ask them what they think they need to practice. That can be really eye-opening for you. You can't just use it as, do you have any questions? And if they say no, great, put a big star and move on. Hopefully these little tips will give you some ideas of how you can use this questioning slide at the end to build up your student, give them something to practice, and frankly, make yourself look good to your customers. Have a great day.